Hey, welcome to Grace Note Recordings. If this is your first time here, we're glad to have you part of the community. We're currently doing a series not only documenting setting up the studio in the new space, but making upgrades and improvements along the way. If you need to get caught up, feel free to click up here and we'll meet you back here in a few minutes. Now, you've heard me say before that I rely on this space to facilitate my creative process. Every decision that goes into my setup, my gear, and placement of everything helps me reach that goal in some way or another. So, since I have some extra rack space in my studio desk, I'm going to show you how I built this guitar cab to fit in that extra space. The motivation for this project came when I was planning to build a guitar cab for this amp I built last year. It's a really good practice amp, only about 5 watts, and I can get a lot of different tones out of it to help keep my practice routine interesting without a ton of extra effects. But since space is pretty limited in this new space, I didn't want the cabinet to take up any extra floor space. So I decided to use the extra rack space in my desk to mount the cabinet, and the placement makes it extremely convenient to plug into and mic up. Now, this amp is a Fender Princeton 5C2 circuit, which was a circuit used in 54 to 55 Tweed Princeton amps. I wanted the cabinet design to honor its heritage and thought that the grill cloth was the best way to convey that. I thought about going all out into that idea and put these vintage style leather straps instead of these metal handles, maybe even covering the panel with tweed, but in the end this is mainly intended for practicing, so I mostly used parts I had on hand and didn't spend a ton of money or time on this project. Construction is extremely simple. First, I marked out my center lines for reference and then cut out the large speaker hole. By the way, this is a 6U blank panel that I got on Amazon, which is linked down below, and I'm using an 8-inch speaker. More on the speaker in a minute. This 6U size is perfect for an 8-inch speaker. It's a little tight for a 10-inch speaker, but it will still work. And for a full 12-inch speaker, you'll need at least an 8U sized panel to allow your speaker to fit. I did a lot of research on having a metal baffle. I was concerned that the metal would resonate at undesirable frequencies or rattle, making it unusable. I wasn't really able to find any information on this, except for just a few tidbits in the car audio realm, but that didn't fully apply to this project, so I just decided to dive in and hope that it worked. I did use rubber washers in between all my hardware in order to mitigate the risks of these concerns, but ultimately, the metal baffle works perfectly fine. Granted, I'm not pumping a ton of power into this speaker, but I can't even tell that it's bolted to a metal panel. For the speaker, I went with a Jensen 8-inch 4-ohm ceramic vintage. While the original Princeton Tweed amps had Alnico speakers, I just couldn't justify the extra cost. At the time of shooting this ceramic speaker was about $50 and the Alnico was over $100, both brand new out the door. My Rickenbacker M11 big box has an Alnico Jensen in it, so I wanted to diversify my speaker selection a bit, so I went with this. Full disclosure, this speaker hasn't been fully broken in yet, so the sound will change over the next couple weeks of playing it. Therefore, keep that in mind for those listening with a critical ear. Let me know down in the comments whether you'd like to see me shoot out different speaker selections. Perhaps the ceramic versus Alnico we just talked about, or even an 8-inch versus 10-inch comparison. Let me know down below and I'll make that into a future video. Next, I made what is essentially a wooden picture frame for the grill cloth to secure to, which once completed are fastened to the panel with bolts and T-nuts. Now, the two most important details for getting professional results with your grill cloth are making sure that the cloth is even and straight and ensuring the corners are tight. I like to work symmetrically, checking my lines on every staple to make sure I'm keeping it aligned properly. Since the edges are going to be exposed, unlike a traditional amp cabinet, I needed to take some extra time dressing up my corners. So I finished them with the traditional hospital corner, which also adds some extra meat on the back for the staple to grab into. When you're finished, you should feel a firm spring when you lightly tap on the surface. Kinda like a drum head, although not quite as tight. Finally, I mounted some extra handle hardware I had laying around to make it easily removed from the rack space. I'm excited to hear what you guys think about this project down below. It's different, but it helps make my space a little more creative. I'm so happy with how it turned out, I'm actually considering turning this into a complete combo amp by somehow integrating a chassis into this, so stay tuned. If you found value in this project, please like this video and consider subscribing to follow this and other projects in my home studio. Thanks for watching.